My friends, one of the most obvious places to have a transition is in the intro. Have to get people going right from the beginning. Some of my go-to effects are snares, usually bombs, some cymbal reverses, intentional breaks, effects, Actually, let's run that back one more time. Snares, usually bombs, some cymbal reverses, intentional break effects. Yeah, ladies and gentlemen, that is my 100th transition. Make sure to hit subscribe, tap that bell and like button if you've been loving the content over the last 100 videos. And like I said in the beginning, the most obvious place to have a transition is in the intro. Mission accomplished, but in this episode, I'll be teaching you a few ways to do a transition to add some life to your song. So make sure you stay tuned because you're not gonna wanna miss this. And what's happening, fam? Miami here with JST, and sometimes you wanna take your song from this
Something's getting in the way
to this.
Something's getting.
But if you don't know what to go for, it can leave the track feeling stale, and that's never what we want, right? And the thing is, I felt the need to make this episode because it's pretty often that bands don't write with these things in mind. So unless bands somehow created really interesting breakdown effects in pre-pro, this one's for you. Run that back one more time. So unless bands somehow created really interesting breakdown effects, that's 101 right there. My transition game has leveled up just in time for us to get into our first effect. Reverse vocals, or better yet, this is a great way to transition into a verse out of an intro or the end of a chorus. It doesn't work as well going into a chorus, in my opinion, because we're always focused on the track hitting on the one. We're gonna take this
Something's getting in the way.
and turn it into this.
Something's getting in the way.
With a few simple steps. First thing you're going to want to do is cut a small piece of the beginning of the phrase, add a reverb to it, and then reverse the vocals so it sounds like it's a swell.
Something's getting in the way. Something's getting in the way. Something's getting.
Because it's being made from the original source, it sounds more natural than using something like a cymbal or a snare. I find that it usually feels best when you do this going into the first verse because it leaves room to show your track will have added production elements that another song just might not have. But this is just one way to spice up your verse. Let's talk about something to spice up a transition into a chorus. A riser. This is one of the most typical production effects that's ever used. It was popularized when people would take cymbals and start reversing them, then snares and so on, even ride bells. And if anyone wants to ride the bell on, nah, we're done with the transitions, so let's focus on the actual transitions. It's usually used going from a verse or pre-chorus into a chorus and helps with making a big impact. Because that's essentially what we're trying to get when we're dealing with a chorus, right? So when using a riser before the chorus, you're gonna wanna make sure the ending transient lines up on the same one that the chorus would hit on. Depending on the way you want the effect to hit, you can mute the other audio tracks while it's rising for a dramatic effect. Listen to this example of how it can work for both.
I'm so sick of being blind. I lived a life. Chains pulling side to side. I'm so sick of being blind.
Now, that's one way to make the chorus hit every single time. If you enjoyed that sound effect, just be aware that I'm using the JST Chaos Production Volume 1 pack all throughout this video, and you can grab your copy by going to the link in the description below. But there's another thing that comes to mind when I don't feel like doing a riser, and that's like literal transition-based effects. These are often based on specific tempo and key, in which you can drag a sample in, lock it to your key of the song with a pitch shifter, stretch the audio to your song tempo, and insert it to go from verse to chorus or chorus to breakdown, whichever you choose. It doesn't take a lot of thought process with these because they tend to either sound good right away or they just aren't very effective at all. Here's an example of one that actually does work in the track.
I'm so sick of being blind.
And if I'm still trying to find a transition to work for a part and can't get a riser or a time-based transition to work, I usually just go for a glitch. And making an audio glitch, I feel like it's just never gonna get old because it sounds really futuristic. And there are some programs that'll do this for you. Stutter is one of them. D-Blue Glitch, which is a personal favorite of mine. But if you really want to be hands-on, you could just make your own instrument or vocal chop yourself, you know? That's literally a son of a glitch. Crickets? Crickets? No? No? Listen to this glitched out transition and see how much character it adds to the part.
Something's getting in the way. Something's getting in the way.
And now let's get on to our next topic, and this kind of comes in a bunch: vocal throws, impacts, and snare bombs. Vocal throws are effects that you can add at just about any time, and they really give a movement to the song. It's one of the most simple effects that use reverb or delay to create excitement in a mix, and sometimes signify that the production has good movement. It works really well when there's room in the vocals to emphasize a word at the end of a line. Sort of like this.
Stuck under the pressure like a heart attack. Even when I try. Stuck under the pressure like a heart attack. Even when I try.
And snare bombs are an effect that add a lot of power to the snare. You take a snare, cover it in reverb, and then you layer it with the original snare. What this does is create a really powerful effect that you usually would hear in a breakdown, you know, in heavier music. But I've seen this done in rap and hip hop beats all the time. You just gotta get creative with it. It's an ear candy that sometimes people wouldn't even notice until you point it out. And it's a great way to make drums stand out in a simple way. Now let's talk about impacts. Those are a type of cinematic effect that usually land on the one. They're sounds that you would similarly hear in a movie that kind of shock you out of nowhere. Used properly, they can make a chorus or breakdown feel larger than life.
Sick of being blind. I lived a life. Sick of being blind. I lived a life.
But one thing that accompanies an impact really well is something we mentioned earlier: a riser. When you put a riser before an impact, it creates a tension and suspense and then gives us the satisfying result that we were waiting for. I'd even say using a riser without an impact can sometimes be anticlimactic. So let's go over all of these one more time. Reverse vocals, risers. Transition-based effects, impacts, vocal throws. Snare bombs, glitches. These are quite a few ways to add some spice to your song and make your transition game even crazier than mine. And after hearing productions without any of these added effects, it's easy to see how someone can get bored of your typical run-of-the-mill mix. That ear candy is what keeps the listener hooked and excited from start to finish, and when that's not a factor, you can usually guarantee someone's going to hit that skip button ASAP. You have to think about it. People have the option of listening to 1,000,000 songs every second. Why should it be yours that they're listening to? We have a lot of competition out there and are competing for people's attention. Hopefully, these help you understand the attention to detail needed and help you elevate your next song. Transitions are depth of sauce, but you also have to make sure that you have a great track, right? And it always starts with the source. Anyways, do you use any of these effects in your song? Are you gonna go take one of these effects and try and do it in your next song? Leave it in the comments below and I'll chat with you fine people like I always do. If you're an engineer on the come up, give this video a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe, you only have to do it one time. And tap that bell for notifications so when a video drops, you know the location. Until next time, my friends, I'm out of here. Later.